Hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast for the recently deceased. I'm Nate Roberts.
I am Rodney Godek. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. I'm okay. I'm in a bad mood because of this tenant I was just telling you about.
Yeah.
Man, I'm a three months a landlord. For those of you out there who don't know, and I have this tenant who just is giving me crap about parking, and there's no parking guaranteed in the lease, and anyway, it's a headache I don't want to have on a Tuesday night when I got to do my podcast. It's like, lady,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just want
You
to do
just
my thing.
gotta
I just want to relax
just
and do my
unplug.
thing.
Don't let it, don't let it infect what we got going on tonight.
Yeah, I don't want to bring
Tonight's gonna be a fun one. Yeah.
don't want to bring my work
I'm
home
doing
with me.
okay today. Today's been, I had the baby. Wife's back at school. I'm still taking some time off to spend with the babe. She was awesome today. Did a little bit of little side work, art on the tablet, and did a little bit more test playing on Oath so that I could kind of refine that whenever I eventually host it with whomever I end up hosting a little campaign or a couple games with.
That's a good
So yeah,
game.
a fun little relaxing. It is a great game. It was a lot of fun. There's so many different ways that can the game can change just from the cards. It's unique every time you play it. So
Sure.
so tonight we are going to be discussing She Will.
She will. A movie that I knew pretty much nothing about, except I had seen like part of a trailer, and I remember thinking it looked good.
I
I
think
was
I
like,
just saw the poster and I was like, and I saw the poster. I think it was on someone's list as one of the top horrors or was critically rated on Tomatoes for being better than most other horror released this year. And based upon the fact that it was on someone's list for being highly favorable on Rotten Tomatoes and the poster looked so cool, I was like, well, I'm in.
yeah, I don't know where saw the clip, but I know that I knew Malcolm McDowell was in the film before it had started.
Hmm.
Um, so that was my only, uh, I don't know, the only thing I knew about it.
Sure. It's an a so for me, this is an interesting movie for us to discuss because I think it can land a lot of different ways, but I think that it is a perfect representation of um, a middle of the road type movie or story or um, genre folk horror, which uh, subgenre. Like it's middle of the road in a lot of ways, but it's doing things in such a high level of execution that I think that it propels it to something that should be considered or revered more than it probably end up ever will be. I think it deserves a lot of credit. Uh, I think it won't last with a viewer, but I think it's very, very, very strong in all the aspects that we're going to get into. And for me, I think I feel really strongly in a positive way about it, but I don't think that when I look back critically, it's not that it's going to blow you away in any one way. It's just that it's so good at what it's doing that you should feel really fulfilled after watching it if you are a cinephile or into the genres that it's embedded in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this movie achieves more things on a technical level than it does, unfortunately, from my own perspective, on an entertainment level.
Well,
Uh,
that's because you're more part of the patriarchy.
yeah,
And I don't
yes,
think so. That's
obviously.
the other thing. This is a feminist movie in a lot of ways.
Oh, it definitely is.
It's
Sure.
not feminist in the way Take Back the Night is feminist,
Right.
but it's has strong female leads that are going through a transformative experience, and it's not heavy-handed in or preachy, but it is very much about womanhood. And again, this is coming from a male that doesn't really relate or understand exactly in an emotional level what the characters could be going through, or what I'm led to believe, or what I'm being shown. I can't relate in that way, but from
Sure.
an objective experience, I obviously can try to understand what can give you strength to move forward with or rebirth in life after you have gone through your ordeal or your trial. And so all of that is just like it's funny. It's like a witch's brew of all these elements. There's so many cool parallels that are come up through the film visually, um, in the storytelling, that are just so steeped in the folk and the lore of witch and Scotland, folk tales in general. You know what I mean? Like that. It's so lush with all of those elements that there's so much to chew on, even if it's not this like otherworldly viewing experience.
Yeah, yeah. I visually the movie is beautiful. Um, it's wonderfully acted. I even love like the all of the peat, as they called it.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
all of the peat CG. I never once was like did I scowl at it, and you know
Right.
what what a stickler I am for that crap. Um, like it was all just done, like as I said, technically very well. I loved the environments. I loved um, I loved the story. I'm not going to say that scene for scene that I enjoyed it
Hmm.
all, but like the overarching plot, um, the transformation of not only the main character but her assistant.
Hmm.
Once again, a lot of like overcoming trauma was a big part of the narrative, and it has been a big part of the narrative for a lot of movies, especially in the genre
Yeah.
this year. It seems to be a major recurring theme.
Yeah,
Well,
in a ton of things.
yeah,
Oh, and we were
men, resurrection. I mean,
yeah.
like this is the sixth movie of season two, and we're batting 50% on like literally just like female-led trauma movies. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I don't know what to attribute that to. I'm not sure if it's that these voices weren't giving a platform before, or if they just have better awareness and representation now, as we are a more progressive and inclusive culture. As as studios or film execs go, this is
I'd love to think it's the second one.
right, 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 right. Yeah, I know, and so I guess it is very interesting that there's so much more of this happening. It's great. I welcome it. The thing that is important to note is, I feel very strongly about this, at least, is making a film that deals with some of the topics that each of the films that we've already referenced get into. It's one thing to make a film that references heavy topics or serious topics. Uh, like Master is a great example as far as trying to tackle race relations in a sort of modern college young adult environment,
Yeah,
or
Master
adult,
was.
really. I mean, newly adults. Like,
Yeah,
it's one thing to talk about those kinds of subject matters. It's another thing to do it in an artful and intending way, where you're actually communicating on a lot of different levels. Like you mentioned, visuals, like that's coming at you one way. The way that music and the score is composed with this, and companion with the visuals, takes you another way. Like, all of those elements, I think, need to be included in films like this. And I think Master did a great job, because it was also playing with, is this a race thing? Is this a spooky ghost story horror thing? And it had a really cool juxtaposition, right?
right,
Uh,
right.
this one just hits like all of the traditional movie making elements that you would need to tell a good story, and it just has all of the subtext of femininity and witches and the environment of Scotland and the Earth, which Earth is so important in Wiccan culture and all that, if that's a way to describe it. You need all of that to to go hand in hand. You need to do it well. Just because you talk about whether it's race or femininity or something that's a hot button type topic, just because your movie's about that doesn't mean that it's inherently worth watching, good, worthy of discourse. It can be a garbage movie, and it's great that you've talked about it and brought it to the forefront for people to discuss. But you need to bring us somewhere. You can't just give us an idea and let us do all the work thinking and talking about it. And I've been very strong, obviously, as far as like, World's Fair and Take Back the Night, where I think they're talking about very serious things, and I like those ideas. I want to talk about that more, or see. I want to be told a story about those topics more. But those I thought were executed so poorly that it was a disservice to the subject matter. Yet people still think that people still promote it and build them up in a way that I think is disingenuous. And I think that they're well intended, where they just want more people to see it and to talk about those subjects and to care about those subjects. And they
Right.
want more movies to be made about those subjects.
Sure, but
So
by lifting up like the so-called bad art or whatever, just because of the subject matter is yeah, like you said, like not exactly genuine.
it's just, yeah, it's not maybe the best representation. Just because there's another person trying to voice on that topic does not mean that that voice is uh, well curated, I suppose, for the
Sure.
subject matter. So uh, you want to do finish broad strokes and score for She Will before we get into a little bit more details about what
Yeah.
made it what we're talking about?
Yeah, let's do it. She Will. Uh, a movie about a woman who she's seemingly at the end of her life. She goes to a retreat just to be alone. And once again, you think that maybe it's like to die, like she's ready. She has a nurse who's a 24/7 nurse, and just some crazy things happen. Um, some unexpected things happen. Uh, this movie was good. Um, Unfortunately for me, it was, and the best way I can describe it without insulting the film is that it was forgettable. Um, yeah, it looked great. Yeah, it sounded great. It had great acting. Like I said, the story was good, but by the end of the movie, I kind of forgot like what we were doing there in the first place. Like it's just like it's just like a bunch of like really cool scenes like packed into, just like one right after another, and um so for me I have to give this movie a 5. It's in a realm, or it's in a number where I would say, check it out if you're into that sort of thing, and I would describe it to you, but it's not like I would not suggest that anybody go see this
Oof, oof. I thought it was funny whenever you said if you're into that sort of thing. I'm not sure what you meant by
movie.
that sort of thing. Like what part of the topics that you mean whenever you say it.
Yeah, like
It's
like a boring art house movie.
okay, fair enough. Um, I'm interested in our conversation focusing in on what you're having a hard time putting your finger on, because I don't disagree with you. I think what I thought of as you were talking, waiting to talk, uh, you know,
Yeah.
um, but no, because it's like what you do, right? You like forget that someone's talking. You don't listen to what they're saying. You're just thinking of what you're about to say,
Right.
which is not what I was doing. But something dawned on me because I've been trying to figure this out. The whole conversation that we've had, there is still something that like holds me back from completely fully embracing this as a magnificent movie, and it's a je ne sais quoi. I don't know what
Right.
exactly it is. The best I think that I'm coming to realizing, because this is my second viewing that I watched right before we got on live, was uh, it might be like, I don't like to say this term, but like the it factor. It doesn't have like this like thing that it's like just this spark. There's something lacking. It is so excellent in everything that it's doing, but it still feels in some way lacking, and I don't know exactly why. Um, it's hard to say because I love every part of this movie. Uh, there might be some pacing issue, but again, it's an art house and slow, and there's visuals there, so you're listening and seeing things that are so beautiful and transformative that you're still transfixed to the screen and still enjoying what you're seeing. Uh, so it's hard to say. For me, I know that my first viewing, I left that viewing with rating it a 9 out of 10. I could have been maybe a little bit inebriated, which made the feelings and the atmosphere even that much more impactful. And I know when I first watched it, I had my headphones on. I was right here in the room on the monitor, so I was glued and immersed in a way more so than I was when I just rewatched it with the wife in the living room in the middle of the day
Hmm.
while I was having dinner.
Sure.
So I think that viewing and like I might want to pull it back to an 8, but I still feel strongly about that 9. And so I think I'm going to just leave it at that 9 and we'll see where the conversation goes if maybe that, something else comes out and adjust that. But I would recommend this to people. I think that if you are into art house or you're into slow burns, if you're into folk horror, if you're into witch horror, if you're into um, Scotland or British Isle type environments for your films, because this is very heavily involving nature and the look of it and the way the characters are communing with it. If that's your thing, if you're Wiccan, obviously, uh, this movie is for a lot of people. But I think that people that are more popcorn horror, Saw, big blockbuster horrors like Nope, like if that's your cup of tea and your regular stuff, this will not communicate to you probably at all. Um, I think you'll be bored out of your mind and would not be interested in it. So um, it doesn't mean you're any better or worse than anyone that is into it or isn't into it. It's just I think that that's just a fair statement as far as where that line is drawn.
All right. So
So let's get into it
a
then.
5 and a 9. All right, let's do this thing that we forgot to do
It's
earlier. She will.
taller than most average men.
An aging film star retreats to the Scottish countryside with her nurse to recover from surgery. While there, mysterious forces of revenge emerge from the land where witches were burned. This movie was directed by Charlotte Colbert, written by Kitty Percy and Charlotte Colbert. Um,
Just
or
sorry,
Colbert.
Kitty Percy just it's too close to being alliterative to other feminine words that it's like or
Right.
innuendo. It's fun. So I want to comment. Um, we'll reread that because your little recap that you gave before you scored it, you're like, she's down the countryside, it's the end of her life, she got nursed. Like you completely glazed over the fact. Either it didn't mean anything to you, or you just like it doesn't really matter. It didn't like she just had a double mastectomy, which
Yes.
is kind of crucial to this idea that again can't relate emotionally,
Right.
but uh, womanhood itself, like it's a symbol of who you are. Your body is now 100% different. It's not the same as losing my penis or balls, but it's very similar and close to it. Like your identity, your femininity is gone now, just like that from one thing. And so while she might still have cancer treatment or things to worry about, that action or that act occurring and now her going out to try to mend or heal is extremely important with the events of the film and thinking about her femininity and in that environment where witches were burned at the stake. They mentioned early on in the movie there's 3,000 plus bodies buried amongst
Right.
this countryside where this retreat is at. So it is very important. When you glazed over, I was like, we're gonna revisit that. It's not important, but to your point, it is rather fleeting early on. They do discuss it later on, obviously, whenever she goes through her transformation and everything. But it's this movie is more subtle with some things, and others not so much. But so that's an easy thing to maybe glaze over or to miss or to not be as impactful for because it's just going to give you a little taste of it and then it's going to move on and start getting into other things, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Were you thinking about the mastectomy the whole time during the movie or was it like gone from your mind?
Um, I mean, I knew it was there. I okay, so like we have the bath scene. Okay,
Did
well,
you
hold on,
watch
hold on.
this? Did you watch this with Anastasia, or it was just
No,
you?
I watched it alone.
Okay, alone.
So alone. So I
Yes.
was fully immersed.
No, yeah, I know. I was just wondering because I imagine Anastasia would have very strong feelings with some of the subject
Yeah,
matter, and so I
exactly.
was
Yes.
interested, but doesn't matter.
So, um, when everyone is introduced, there's like a groundswoman who announces that there will be peat in the water. Um, you can complain all you want, you're drinking it anyway, right? It's a really cool line. I wish there was more of this lady in the movie, but she has like no scenes.
Yeah, they're very mysterious. Her and the ATV lady.
Yeah. So she's taking a bath. She's warned by her nurse not to get her bandages wet, and she's basically completely submerged. Her bandages obviously completely soaked.
Yeah,
And this drip comes from the faucet, and it is blackened by something. You're assuming maybe peat or whatever,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then it like kind of gets its own will and sneaks up in there, and then it goes around the bandages, and you assume it like seeps inside her through these sutures, and she kind of from that on, like that's the inciting incident. Like
yes.
she is now transforming into this like basically full blown witch by the end of the movie. But
Yeah,
she's
it's I think that it's great because it is a literal like Pete is literally in the water, but it's visually showing you the peat in the water penetrating her body, but then it does start to mix all these visuals of where it's like space and dust and just like energy, and there's all these like evocative, subjective visual scapes of what's occurring. And yes, it's very ephemeral.
yeah,
And
tons of like ash in the sky, ash
oh yeah, which
falling,
I think was loved because which is
imagery,
great. The guy at the bar later on is like, "Oh, those are witches' feathers."
witches'
It's
feathers, yeah,
ashes from the charcoal,
from the charcoal,
um,
yeah,
the burning that they're doing there, which they have the vine charcoal that they're doing in their art thing. So I love all of those. Like it's so layered, it's all
yeah,
meaningful, and it's all they're in a natural environment, and it's nature plays such a huge role in Wiccan religion and in with what the witches were doing 300 years ago. 1722 is the last tombstone that they see on the way to the camp.
right,
So
right,
yeah, I love that all of that is happening. It makes it so much more
yeah.
lush.
Plus, we're getting also little flashes of witches. The same image comes over time and time again of a witch
Yeah,
tied to a tree, mostly scarred from fire, in this kind of face mask that you'll find later. The nurse is like flipping through a book, and there's like the mask that they would put on women who were insolent. Is like that was like the punishment was this
hmm
mask that
yeah. I think it
definitely
even had like a ball gag. Yeah,
yeah, it definitely like stopped them from being able to talk in addition to whatever else, whatever other torture it did.
yeah. You're gonna. They do a lot of dream states or dream sequences.
Yeah. The transformation is cool. Like it starts with it seems like she almost astral travels in these dream
Yeah,
states where she's actually, maybe incorporeal, but she is still out there. She is actually present doing these witchy things while her, physical body is sleeping in the bed. So that was like a neat concept, right? And you have to get used to it, right? Because the first time it happens, you're like, oh, was that a dream? And the second time it happens, you're like, oh, it's definitely not a dream.
right. Yeah, like her physical body is moving sometimes, but her mind is also going in other places while her physical body is moving, and sometimes her body's not moving and her mind is just moving. it's an amalgamation of all those possible things. It's like, yes, like the astral projection of things. They're just doing things. Um, things just doing things. Jesus, Rodney. But it's I think that they do a really good job of just hitting you with those visuals to know that you are leaving the earthly realm of sorts, and going on an adventure, like through the sound and through the visuals, with having those flashes of different color or light or imagery. It's taking you somewhere, and you know that because all the other interactions with the other characters are very standard format, characters in frame and interacting with one another. And then you get into these trippy things and you know what's happening. I think they do a good job of isolating those sequences in a way that you know what's going on for the most part.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, you might question it, but it's doing it right, and you will understand eventually, because of the repetitive nature of how they build it, and that they follow their own rules. Well, they don't break the rules so that you are really questioning. Because there's plenty of times where we're going to talk about all the different movies that we watch that are folk and witchy horror, but Hellbender, for me, I remember oftentimes it was hard to tell when they were doing real things or not real things, because there was no real strong visual cues that you're in a different space or not. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
you're always questioning. It wasn't until you're several moments or minutes into that scene or after the scene occurred where you're like, oh, that was in the past. Oh, that was real. Oh, that was a dream. Oh, that was,
Yeah.
for me at least, that's the one that comes to mind, where it was confusing with when things were doing what.
Well, okay. So speaking of Hellbender, and maybe some kind of confusion, uh, following the film, this was Charlotte's first feature. She has a handful of shorts behind it. This was also Charlotte and Kitty's first feature script as well. So, you know, first of all, to like break out with this movie, I think is huge. And
Oh
is a
yeah.
great like I gave it a 5, but like this is an excellent first first feature for any writer director, I think.
But again, your five, like it's missing. It's because it doesn't have that. There's something about it that it is still lacking,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
your five is valid. It's still a great movie. Like, five to this, it makes sense, but it is more than a five in a way. Like it's such
It's
an
a good
interesting thing.
it's a good movie.
Yes, for that,
It's a
it's an amazing first film.
yeah, it's a good movie, and I have very few bad things to say about it. In fact, I don't know if I have any bad things to say about it. I just everything that I liked, I just didn't like enough to give
Right.
it a higher score. Yeah, it was beautifully shot. Yeah, it was beautifully acted. The writing was fine. I wouldn't say it was excellent. The
Yeah.
story I think was better than the dialogue, right? But
Yeah,
I,
there's a few
you
moments
know,
of like impactful messaging that occur, or like interesting things about the dialogue. But yeah, for the most part, it's just the events that are unfolding that are
yeah.
interesting and driving
I was way more interested in like in beats and plot points as opposed to
yeah.
like what everybody was saying to each other. I just didn't think, some movies have interesting dialogue, some movies have very natural kind of basic dialogue, and that was what this had, and I don't know. It definitely, like you said, it needed something, and I don't know what it was, but I know that I watched the movie with a smile.
Yeah.
I enjoyed everything,
Yeah, I mean,
and
it's almost like it's maybe like a sick movie, like a movie that you would want to watch when you're just laying in bed, and
yeah,
like a comfort movie, or it's like how you would feel about like comfort food,
yeah,
that it's not amazing food, but you love eating it,
yeah. It feels good.
and it makes you feel good. Yeah.
Yeah, I even liked the static when she was
Yeah.
in like incorporeal, astral travel witch form or whatever. You know, so I guess, okay, if I want to talk about what I didn't like, I would say that the plot was very predictable. Like I definitely knew everything that was going to happen, so I was never really surprised. Any surprise I took from the film was more kind of like oh, that's an interesting interpretation of that thing. Oh, I like that they really did it that way. Like that. Those were my surprises.
Yeah.
Like,
We'll
you
try
know,
we'll try to, not address how potentially pretentious that sounds,
I'm
because
just saying, like,
it definitely sounds snobbish and pretentious. We're like, I mean,
okay,
I definitely
all right,
knew everything that was gonna happen. I'm not criticizing you, and I'm not attacking you, but I'm saying, like, if you were to cut that bite,
yeah,
it sounds like, that you're up here on this lofty mountain of art horror, and you're like, I knew what was happening.
yeah.
This is like I knew Pete Davidson was the guy, like,
I
and he did it
did.
to
I
himself.
definitely did. All right. I knew he was gonna die first. Anyway, uh, I knew it was an accident too. Anyway,
But your sentiment though is valid, and I agree. The movie, it's like any other movie. The structure of it is like, okay, here's a woman. She's recovering from something. She starts to commune with the environment. It has witchy vibes, and you see the flashbacks, so you know she's going to become more immersed in it in one shape or form, and transformative in that, and
right,
interact with characters through that element. And she might die at the end if there is an antagonist, but there never is really an antagonist, so you know that
right,
she's going to overcome and face something
right.
and succeed in what she
Yes.
faces. So in that sense, it's a very linear
Yeah.
structure that you is
It's
not doing anything new,
yeah.
not
Right.
reinventing the wheel. You know it. So yes,
Right.
you are
Yeah. Yeah.
100%
Yeah.
right.
It's very obvious, and then that you know, not that it's bad. It just takes it away for me,
No, of
right?
course
Like
not.
there's no suspense, there's no thrill, there's no mystery. Okay, so what is there? There's just progression, like the progression of time as
Yeah,
it moves
and it's
forward.
like, and it's experiential.
Yeah, it is. It's way more art than
Yes.
story, I guess is the best way to put it. I don't want to say it's more art than film because obviously.
Well, I mean, yeah, but like, and that's what's it's an interesting point, because like, there's a lot of great art and artworks that are pretty simple, straightforward, things, or what the artist intended on communicating. It's like, oh, this is this is life, this is sadness, this is happiness, a
Right.
simple emotion. And it's just through, like, abstract painting especially, um you just experience it, and it just washes over you, and it's not as if it's something else. So this is a movie that is more about the art form of, like, communicating the feelings and emotions that the characters are going through, that you're going through with them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like so we talk about the plot, right? I mean, like I just didn't feel anything, like she's really cold. She's really cold to the nurse, right? And
sure.
but then she gets her power, and the nurse is about to get raped in the woods, and she uses her power to suck that guy into the earth. It was a great scene. It's a
Mhm.
great scene, but like you knew that she knew she was going to be rescued by the protagonist and her power, her newly found power. Um, so then and like okay, so does the nurse know? Does she have an idea? She like I think she feels it, but she doesn't know how to say anything, right? And
Yeah,
then
because yes.
we come to like right like the climax, and she's she has no friends or family as far as we know. She says she hates kids early on, right? She gives
The
this the protagonist, right?
Yes.
She gives her her this necklace, this heirloom necklace or pendant or whatever to the nurse. And the
Hmm.
nurse is like, no, I can't take this. This was your mother's. And she's like, no, take it and get out of here and never come back, because
Hmm.
she's about to face her villain, and she doesn't think she's going to survive, right? She thinks
Right.
that the maybe she thinks that the energy, the power that she's going to have to tap into to do this thing to face her fear, she just doesn't think she's going to make it, right? So then she goes and does it. They even like she even like materializes to where he can see her, so they can talk for a second. And this is definitely her facing her trauma, right?
Hmm.
Um, so she turns into the black swirly smoke
Yeah,
monster.
the witch's feathers
Witch's
that the guy.
feather,
Yeah.
yeah, and like kind of pushes him off the balcony, and he dies, right? But while this is happening, we have the nurse driving away, crying, and then and then you see her driving again, but now it doesn't look like she's driving away. It looks like she's driving back,
Mhm.
and she gets there, and and the protagonist is obviously like out of energy. She's completely like wasted. The nurse gets there, and it's like, wake up, or uh, you know.
Hmm.
And then like the next scene, there, everybody's fine and happy, and like she's come out the other side. Truly, the hero's journey, right? She is not the person who started this movie. She's because like when she started the movie, she was very angry, very bitter. Even the end where she does go ahead or go against the director, right?
Hmm.
Um, she like strips nude, um, and you see the scarring, and
Hmm.
she maybe accepts
Yeah.
or embraces her body, for the first
Yeah,
time
absolutely. Yeah.
since the surgery. So like then that's where her power comes from in this final
Right.
moment.
She's it's it. This doesn't change anything about the strength and beauty and everything that she is. You
Right.
know, um, because yeah, she's an aging actress. She is not as sought after for roles the way that she once was. She was
Sure.
this original person, and so now it's like she's an aging actress. So she's at the tail end of her career, and now she has this issue where that you take this away from her. So she was at the bottom of what she thought was her life and career, and she was going to, is it, to fade out, as it were,
Right.
as an aging former Hollywood actress, and it's like this rebirth, um, and yes, that signified her ownership and deciding that doesn't define her, that she does still have life and strength, and she's going to embrace that and be proud and strong moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, she like so when she approaches the director, once again through astral projection, um, he she approaches him initially like as her current self, and then um, as her younger self, because she was abused by this guy in some way when she was a child. And um, I liked this switch, right? Because they had the interview with with the director, where the interviewer really
Hmm.
got on his ass about this potential or alleged illicit relationship between them from when she
Right,
was 13.
and like, did you get that? Like, she was communicating through him. She was like getting him to say those things.
Right.
Like, yeah, to be
Yeah,
her
cause
voice.
yeah, 'cause naturally he wouldn't
Yeah, he wasn't
attack
there.
this guy.
It
It was
wasn't a hit piece. He was on a
yeah,
show. It was supposed to be a light show.
yeah,
And he started to ask very pointed questions about his potential misdeeds, misgivings as a
right.
director with a actress who was 13 at the time,
Yeah,
and he was very defensive and was like, "I didn't do anything wrong, and we had a
yeah.
special relationship." And but
So
he was.
what I liked about this was every time you see the young version of her, she's got this like battered, beaten and battered makeup. Um, and then at the end, when she approaches him directly, um, she instead of the battered and bruised makeup, she has this sloppy, smeared lipstick look, which implies and or reinforces the sexual assault angle.
Mhm.
Um, and then of course he says, he says you knew what you were doing, like just before she throws him off the balcony, which gives you the confirmation. But because you don't really know until this moment exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
You could assume he beat her at least once.
Yeah, it's um they don't paint it out, they don't show you the horrific act because it doesn't really
It
matter. You
doesn't it
just
doesn't
know
matter what it is. Yeah, exactly.
you know
It's an
her
adult.
truth
Yeah,
and you believe her truth because of the way it's presented because this isn't a recontextualizing or a repainting of the past through some different kind of lens because as an adult it's very clear with the way that she has this sort of stoicism and how she is envisioning her past early on in the movie. She's looking at the newspaper of the was it the Navajo Apache Navajo or some
Apache. Yeah, that was the original
it's
film, right?
Navajo Frontier or some shit
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. And he's doing a remake or a requel or
Yeah.
a sequel to it, it's whatever the hell it is. I think they say sequel, but I feel like it's like a
It's
whatever it
more
is.
more like a requel, yeah.
Right, it seems like that. And you see like her reflecting upon her experience and now the fact that there's 14,000 girls lined up to audition for this role and she's just thinking like this is an awful person that is still doing this film. He's had all this fame after this original awful act that occurred with her. He's
Right.
gone on to a star-studded career through the exploitation of her femininity at a young age. And what does that say? And so,
Right. Well, also, like, oh, he's who else has he done this to?
of course,
He's gonna, obviously he's not gonna not do it again.
hmm
God, these poor women. Uh, you know, what can I do? And she can't do anything at the beginning, but she can at the end.
yeah, I love that it's she doesn't intend on that. She just wanted to get away and like not deal with people and anything. She didn't want to face it, and she can't because now she's in a way she's confronted because apparently there's group an art troupe or group retreat with an artist leading it, and this is sort of like where there's like the comic relief of the film, if you could call it that,
Yeah, yeah.
where the lead artist I want to say I think it was this guy played by was it Daniel Payne? At any rate,
No, 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 no.
no,
It
no, no,
was
no. That
Jonathan
was a
Harris. It was Jonathan Harris.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Podrick Lochran was the name of the artist.
No, no, no. That was the interviewer.
Oh, was that?
Remember
Oh,
late night
that
with
was.
night
Oh, yeah,
late night
that's
with
right.
Podrick.
Oh, that's right.
No, it's Rupert Everett, a Tyrador. Must have been. Yeah, Tyrador. Because he says like that's what he goes by. Anyways, it's like it's funny when he first meets him. Uh there's all these interesting things because they've got the pyramid crystal. He has this Asian woman who's like just always dancing around.
Yeah,
And it's kind of funny because it's like I view that as like this a different cultural interpretation or commune with the environment or with nature or with something, but like it didn't fit in this setting. Like it was I think it was meant to be like the the contrast or like how it doesn't fit here or that she's not communing with the way that the women in this area would or did, like she's doing the visual dancing that is supposed to do that, but it's you're just doing silly dance. It doesn't really do anything. You know what I mean?
yeah. The first
So
time I saw her dancing, I thought it was like Tai Chi, and then it
right,
was more
yeah,
like interpretive dance. But yeah, it
yeah,
was
but it's
very.
under this guise of this art experience, and
Yeah.
she's so in touch with things. But the guy that's leading the retreat, he's hilarious because he's a blowhard, and he's not he doesn't really know what he's doing. Excuse
Yeah.
me. And all the techniques that he's talking about utilizing in their art, they're real hokey and silly, and it's a good break from the seriousness of like her transformation. He's always doing like the They're doing all the
Yeah.
rituals, and it's like, what do you? This is a joke.
Yeah,
Like you may,
yeah.
but the very real things are happening around it, and he's just like completely unawares. He doesn't know what's actually happening, and it's a good little comic foil to all the more serious events that are happening in the movie. And
That
I
fire
enjoy that.
sequence, yeah.
He's pissing on the ground right there, and he's like, "It's
Yeah.
always important to leave your mark." And it's
To
like
leave your
it's
mark to leave your
it's
mark
not
on the earth.
yeah, it's not like funny, ha ha ha. It's just like this jackass. You
Yeah.
smirk and you kind of chuckle because he's so unaware of it. And it's just
Yeah.
like whenever the other male artists they're critiquing her expressionist abstraction that she made with the peat and the charcoal,
Right.
and he's like, "Why is it so phallic?" And she's like, "What?"
What? Yeah.
She's like, it's not.
It's not.
And then like they start talking about it, and and someone says the patriarchy, and he's like, "Oh, the patriarchy,
Yeah.
women always blaming the patriarchy," and she's looking at him just like, "Shut the fuck up!" Like, and she
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
engulfs his
It engulfs
hand
his
in
hand in
flame.
flames. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a great scene.
It's kind of silly in a way that it's like to it's like weird witchy thing, casting a spell type thing, but it's done in a naturalistic type way, and it's just a quick fleeting moment of like of her just realizing that her emotional uh thought or willing her will to make something happen actually did make something happen, and she's like it like clues her like, oh, I can do this, like this is
Right.
nice.
Yeah.
uh and it's a great little element, and so I think that they're important in this film because they kind of balance things out so that it's not just her. You need other things to go on in the movie to make it not so monotonous. um
Yeah, the artist was yeah, like you said, he wasn't laugh out loud funny, but he was completely necessary. Like he
yeah.
had to be there. He broke the tension
Hmm.
because because he was so absurd. Um, yeah, he was great.
Yeah. um so the only other, well, yeah, there's not a whole lot else to say. Like, it's all of these things are happening, and they're all aiding to being immersed into experiencing things, but it's like we have already
Yeah,
said, that there's something that's not pushing it over the edge. But for me, when I first watched it, like everything was just hitting it, yes, yes, yes. Like I still feel strongly about my final score with it. Um,
yeah.
and I
I
think that in part it's heightened because of the soundtrack. So when Desi goes to the bar with the other guy, the other young guy, Owen, Goodbye Horses is playing, and then like some other random like 80s type electronica is going on. Then they have this, they take, I don't know what they're eating. I don't know if it's like shrooms or
yeah, I think
something
it
to that
was
effect.
yeah, I think they took mushrooms. Yeah.
And because he says like, oh, the peat do something special to it, and so like this is what kind of
Well,
starts
this is what unlocks her
yes, this is what starts to
because
penetrate that
be-
barrier for her, because as she's
yeah,
recovering, yeah, she starts to see the pulsating of the earth. She
right.
hears the static in a way.
Yeah,
She's noticing the breath of the of
yeah,
the of the wind.
she has now ingested the peat the same way the peat
Yes.
got into um I keep saying the protagonist.
It yeah.
Veronica's
Yeah,
body.
yeah.
Jesus
Yes.
Christ.
Yeah, and so um the way that they do her like acid trip on the shrooms, and like they show the slugs mating,
Yeah.
and you see her dancing, you
Yeah.
see Veronica kind of like uh hovering above the bed and like going on her mind trips. um
She's also dancing like the same way that dancing guest dances. She does like
oh yeah, yeah,
she does
yeah,
the
yeah.
same kind of moves, which I think
The one like
was
lady that was
intentional.
alone, yeah.
Yeah, the Asian guest is
Oh, her, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that one, yeah.
Yeah, she does the same kind of dance, which I also think was obviously intentional,
Yeah.
because of the peat.
Mhm. You like saying that. It is great the way that they say it. There's all kinds of other imagery that is in this film that like it sticks with you, or that I picked up and then it was reinforced on the second watch. Um, the film. it's sort of bookended with those landscape shots that are sort of like aerial type, but landscape shots on the horizon,
Oh,
where
right,
the
where the water's upside down.
yeah, where the landscape horizon line is bisecting the frame, and you see the perfect reflection of it. But there's things out of focus and that are different, and the things are moving, and so it's just like very trippy. The other great thing is, I don't know if you noticed, but uh, when Hathborn does go over the balcony and he lands on the checkered floor, and they pan out from him, his reflection is mirrored in the blood,
In
and
the
it's
blood,
like
yeah.
echoing the visual of that.
Yep.
But then that whole scene has the layering of the checkerboard bottom floor, but then all the other layers of floor that have that intricate like optical illusion, black white striping that's going on. Very like an Elbers-esque type repeated pattern, Jasper Johns, Frank Stella. All this like art reference type design. It might even be Byzantine. I don't know that those kind of old floor mosaics were, but it's just visually so striking and stark and contrasting, like organic and inorganic elements, or elements of design, and visually like just conflicting with one another. The other aspect is, we talked about the mushrooms that Desi eats, the peat going in through the bathwater on Veronica. All of the natural elements that exist, you kind of envision as being like your like connected to one another, almost like how, you've ever heard like all mushrooms are connected to every other mushroom in the world, or like in a forest, like a mushroom over here is connected to the same, they have the same organism. It's like a group mind, hive mind type thing, where they are communicating in some way, the mycelium or whatever it is. I don't know other, Seth would probably know more, but I thought that this movie did a good job of kind of communicating that idea that all the natural elements that exist in the world, the witch, or her, Veronica, is able to kind of like travel through or commune through. Like whenever he's there with his whiskey, I'm like looking at all the organic elements, the bar top, the scotch that he's drinking came from the earth and the peat and everything. I'm thinking like it's all around you. You can't escape nature. Like, and so I think that the elements, or in the lore of which is being communing with nature, is like, yes, like that is very valid, and that makes a lot of sense. Like, we can't ignore the fact that we are one with this environment and this planet that we're living on, and the way that they visually reinforce that idea to me really like was transformative in the way that I experienced it. Because the way that they do it through the cinematography, and then through editing all those visuals with the soundtrack, is just, man, it took me somewhere else while I was watching it. That first time when I was really immersed, it
Yeah.
was special, and that's why that 9 really stuck.
Yeah.
But man, the way that they do all those elements, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's
Visually, it's a masterpiece. I actually, I don't think I've done this. Maybe I did it one time. I'm gonna bump it from a 5 to a 6 after our conversation. I have to get
awesome.
I have to give it, I just got to go up one. It was that good. I don't want to put it in the middle of the road at a 5. It's got to be on the plus side.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to say about it specifically? A scene that you thought of, or that was
Um Yeah, I think I did talk about my big scene, which was kind of the ending
mhm.
and also like her transformation completion when it's her and Desi and they're dressed nice and they're laughing and she's telling Desi that Desi's got to be strong and lighten up and
Mhm.
go at the world with teeth or she'll get eaten alive.
Yeah, because like,
Like that's yeah, because she's
yeah,
she
because
because
she's starting to clue in, and she's feeling empowered, and she started to
yeah
realize like, yeah, this is, you're young, you have your whole life, yeah, and
yeah
she's like trying to impart her years of wisdom.
yeah
It's just saying like, don't stay in the background of your own life.
right
Come to the front, take ownership, take control. You're a goddamn powerful person, and you're the driving this. You
yeah
can go wherever you want.
yeah. So
And
I
yeah,
mean
to not fight it, that spoke to me. Yeah, whenever
Yeah,
you have to have
so
teeth, because they'll chew you
you
up.
gotta have you gotta have teeth. I thought that was a good line. I really liked the the end was where all the action was. It's a slow burn.
Right.
That the reason it has such a low score for me is it wasn't that it was a too slow of a burn. It was just there wasn't enough. There was just wasn't enough meat. I mean,
Mhm.
not that there wasn't meat. Because but what you're chewing on in this movie, I think, was more cinematography and soundtrack than it was.
Yeah. I think once someone watches, I think that they'll understand. I think that they'll come away enjoying it, but I think that they'll definitely understand where you're coming from with it. And same with my approach. It's just a matter of which one of us that someone might be more aligned with, uh,
Yeah, yeah. I
creatively
mean,
or
obviously,
emotionally
yeah.
with the material.
Obviously, my
Um,
my six is because two people died. Like, at the beginning of the movie, I was like, "Oh, sweet, she's gonna turn into a witch. She's gonna kill every single person at this
yeah.
at this retreat." And obviously, that's not what I was delivered. So yeah,
Right. Yeah. Sometimes, yeah, movies take more serious
yeah,
approaches to what they're talking
yeah.
about.
I
Yeah.
was like, oh, it was supposed to be a solo, visit, but it turns out all these people here. Well, those are the people who are going to die, so obviously people have to be there. This is a horror movie, and you wanted to tell a serious story, and that's fine, and it did an amazing job at it.
The
But for me, we
element
could
that I
have,
don't think we mentioned yet was we talked about the score and music happening, but during some of the peak moments of the film, the real transformative events that are occurring on screen, they have this like chorus of these women chanting with like sort of symphonic orchestral movements, and it's so climactic and emotional that I was just like on the
yeah,
edge of my seat, like chanting, like I'm breathing with it,
yeah,
like I'm feeling the movie course through my veins as like these scenes are going on, and like there's flashing visuals. You see like there's this Sauron's eye visual that they do a couple times. It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the flowering, and
A
then like
lot of
when
fire,
she,
a lot of fire,
yeah,
a lot of fire
uh,
imagery.
and so it's yeah, it's very satisfying, rewarding.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Couple
okay,
th-
you're at
couple
a 6. I'm at a 9.
couple things we didn't mention. This was IFC Midnight production and a Shutter exclusive. So IFC Midnight,
It must be hitting Shutter soon. I
yeah,
know that they planned on it, but yeah,
and then it is also produced by Dario Argento. So,
yeah, it is. And I don't know if you noticed or thought of it, but Alice Krieg, who plays Veronica, is the Borg Queen.
oh, really? I didn't go that deep into
I'm not a
seeing.
huge Star Trek guy, but if you remember,
Oh, First Contacts.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
where
Okay.
yeah, that was her. She has a
Wow.
very long history in film,
Oh my God,
and so
dude, she was the mom of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake, the
yeah.
yeah, the requel.
So uh,
Oh, that's crazy.
she's great, and obviously Malcolm McDowell, he wearing sort of like channeling his inner George Romero with his giant frames. It's kind of great. Like whenever I saw him, I was like, oh man, they should do like a George Romero biopic, but like make it like an actual zombie movie where he's making Dawn of the Dead, but then there's actually a zombie movie. Zombie movie breaks out while he's making Dawn of the Dead, and it's sort of meta, and it's
Yeah.
him and 70s, and
Oh,
use the same kind of effects, even like use just practical effects of the time. I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe make it realistic. I don't know, but that just sounds fun, and he could play George Romero.
Zombie commentary.
Okay, so this is witchy horror, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Where do you think this sits with some of the other witchy horror? Because there's been a handful of witchy horror that we've
Right.
seen since we've begun having our podcast.
Right. So let's just run it down for the audience. The last thing Mary saw, Hellbender.
Hmm.
You won't be alone. You are not my mother. And then okay, so we have this movie now. She will.
Yeah.
Well,
Oof.
it's tough because I really enjoyed the last thing Mary saw.
Yeah.
I also really enjoyed Hellbender. You won't be alone was good, slow, artsy, not quite horror, more of a
Yeah,
drama.
it clickbaited me
Great.
with Numi Rapace on the
Yeah,
cover.
yeah.
That
New
was
face
not
on the
cool.
box cover. She's in the movie for 5 minutes. You
A little too
fuckers.
many characters going full
Yeah,
retard on the whole
yeah.
being
On
mute
the
thing.
yeah, yeah. You Are Not My Mother. I don't think I gave that one that high of a score, but it was still interesting, entertaining, very folk horror. Right,
Uh-huh.
the
Yeah,
Changeling was
and
the
changelings, fairies,
yeah,
dealing with all of those elements. I think it also took place in Ireland. I think that was more Irish, not Scottish.
yeah.
Tomato, tomato, for me,
So
to some extent. But
I personally, I think I'd put it in the middle of the road. Like
or maybe I should say potato, potato, since
potato.
we're talking Irish.
I think I'd put it in the middle of the road. I'd say
She Will is in the middle of that pack.
yeah, I think Last Thing Mary Saw and Hellbender are probably still a little better. It's probably better than Hellbender. I think I
It is
enjoyed
better than
Hellbender
Hellbender.
more. I think Last Thing Mary Saw is the best of these five. So I'd put She Will
I
right
mean,
under yeah, I should put She Will right under that, and then like Hellbender, You Won't Be Alone, You're Not My Mother. They can all just hang out
yeah,
under there.
I for me definitely in that group. She Will is up there. It might be the best one, but there is something special about the last thing Mary saw that I did like. I think it might have been how confined it was. You know, like it was
Yeah,
all very close shots, a lot of darkness, and it kind of had you uncertain with how things were going to go in a
sure.
creative way, like that you didn't
Yeah.
always know where things were going to go.
You know, that's super religious or you know, pious, like
Yeah, the Puritan era. Yeah.
Puritan, and you know, it took weeks to travel anywhere. So like when the you know, when the one guy like came, he it took him weeks to come back, right? So you have
hmm
like this, you have no real perception of like how fast or slow time is passing as these girls are being punished for being gay and in love.
Let's
Um,
also be realistic. Part of why it is scoring better for you is because of Elizabeth Furman
Isabel Furman,
or Isabella Furman. Yeah.
and yes, that's probably true.
Uh,
She was great in that movie,
it was a
but
very good
everyone was
movie.
great, and that was also a we had like a small role from Kieran Culkin.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He was the stranger
yeah, the
that
stranger.
visited.
Yeah,
So yeah, for me, like She Will and Lasting Mary Saw are really neck and neck. You Won't Be Alone is probably next for me. Close with that. After that is You're Not My Mother, and then for me, Hellbender is definitely at the bottom of the pack. Hellbender is
yeah,
just too indie, too indie
yeah,
movie for me. Like I love indie movies. Obviously, our boys uh, Ben Gardner and Christian Stella and everything that's happened with After Midnight and The Battery. It, those guys are my indie movie guys. Like
oh
those
yeah,
are
yeah,
low budget and they're awesome.
yeah. I'll watch
Hellbender
anything
was
those
low
guys do.
budget but not awesome. So anyways, yeah, that's my list. Last thing Mary saw and She Will are at the top, and then the next two down are You Won't Be Alone and You're Not My Mother. Hellbender
Yeah,
would be my last pick. And so if anyone's looking and hasn't watched any of those, they're all good. Especially as we get into this time of year and this season. If you're going to be going to visit Salem, you know we're not that far away from Salem, Mass. There's a lot of people that do travel there, whether it's for fall foliage or for witchy spooky haunting type stuff. Salem is a great attraction, and there's a lot of stuff in upstate New York as well that is super popular as this season starts to change. We're still summer, I get that, but the season is upon us. We just reviewed 31 Days of Halloween last episode, and so these films are all, I would say, You Are Not My Mother. Rewatching in Halloween in October would probably heighten the experience of that film
oh,
because
absolutely.
it occurs during Halloween and it
Yeah,
has those thematic elements. I think that that would heighten the experience. The other ones, it does not matter if it's
yeah,
Halloween, except Last Thing Mary Saw is dark and would feel good to watch in
yeah,
October. So
yeah. Last thing Mary saw, oh, was so good. And Hellbender, you know, I know why you put it last, but man, it was all the right kinds of bad for me. Like,
yeah, there's coolness to it. You know, the messaging, the punk rock of it.
yeah,
Uh,
I even liked the music. Like, I thought the music was
yeah,
good.
it's definitely cool.
which I think their band name is Hellbender, and I think that they
Right,
made
yeah,
this
and it was
movie
a
like,
family that did. I think the husband, wife, the daughter. They were all part of writing and filming it. So like kudos to them. It's. I'm glad that it's on. It was on Shutter. I think it might still be on Shutter. Um, but gosh, yeah. So those were the witchy horrors that happened. But folk lore, folk tales in general have been a ton of. You mentioned Men,
man,
Resurrection of sorts.
Resurrection,
Christ, like there's been
Hatching,
so much of that. Hatching, just bizarre, cool folk tale
yeah,
stories that have
lots of
like
folk horror.
simple story to tell, but they're gonna do something weird, trippy, crazy, or over the top that's gonna make it fun. Lamb, it's not new, but it's a
Yeah,
crazy art house folktale.
yeah,
Simple type things. We're talking about grief and dealing with trauma. That's kind of what it is.
yeah,
But
yeah.
man,
These,
it might be it's I don't it's there's more of those that there are. Like I think that might be, as far as subgenres go, with all the films that we've watched in the past 2 years, that might be probably the most prevalent subgenre that's been made in horror.
yeah, yeah. Recently, I would definitely agree with you. For the last year or two, I mean, there's so many of these folk, or fairy tale style, new age fairy tale style. They're like almost like the way a fairy tale works, right? It takes like
Hmm.
this one human concept of like, greed or sorrow, and it
Right.
here and this is the tale.
Yeah.
Um, and
It's
yeah,
like fables of old, where it's just a
yeah, yeah,
simple
yeah.
lesson to be learned, but they're gonna tell a trippy fucking story
Right, right,
where the frog ends up eating the lion. It's like,
exactly. What was that? What was that one movie? Oh, Hatching, where
yeah.
the lesson was, no good deed goes unpunished. uh, you've got this main character, this little girl, and all she does through the whole movie is the right thing,
Hmm.
and she loses.
Yeah.
Like, all the bad people win. Like, it's
And
crazy.
it's great because like that one especially, it takes those, it's a traditional story, uh folk core elements, but there's this modern lens of social media and parenting that just takes it to a different level. Like the juxtapositioning of those elements create a very interesting dynamic to watch, and yeah,
Yeah, Hatching
it's
was
fun.
amazing. It's high on my list. It it was definitely a great movie.
Yeah,
All right, She Will in the bag.
yeah,
Yeah,
we're
I think
wrapping
it
that
is.
up. Yeah,
We're wrapping up. I think I gave it a 6, and 6 and a 9
yeah,
sounds good.
yeah.
Um,
Nice.
yeah, what are we doing next week?
Shoot. This next week. So what we were gonna do this week was Barbarian.
Barbarian.
However, unbeknownst to us, we miscalculated the release date of Barbarian. Thought we would be able to have access a week early. We were wrong. But
Yep.
I do believe Barbarian is hitting streaming services on the 8th.
Oh, okay. So we can definitely
So
Barbarian for next week.
that is the idea, is that we will watch Barbarian. I continue to see people discussing it, doing posters and saying look out for this film, and the whole
Yep.
reference to it's this year's Malignant. I am done. I don't want to know anything. I don't want to see anything. I've seen the poster and I've heard a word mentioned that I don't even want to talk about. I don't even want to
Yeah.
say because I don't want it to get jammed in my brain.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I saw
But
I saw 5 seconds of the trailer, and then I closed my IMDb box and was like, "Fuck, that was too
yeah,
much. That was too much of that movie."
I saw the word basement, and now I'm just like, well,
Ah,
god damn it. And so I don't like doing trailers.
yeah, I hate
I don't want to
trailers.
watch a trailer. I feel it. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to have any idea of what's happening, and it's it is my cross to bear, as it
Yeah,
were. Um, I get the artistic approach to trailers. We've talked about Jordan Peele's trailers being impactful and good for hyping the movie and getting interested in the movie. And I think those I'm willing to watch because there's a certain understanding that there's not going to be a spoiling of sorts. But I just don't trust most people, so I just avoid it as a rule. And so yeah, what I was getting at before the digression is that it'll be interesting to see how we respond to Barbarian, because with the way that this year has gone, we talked briefly privately off air about quality of horror this year, and while there's been a lot of good horror, to consider what's been like amazing, the best horror of the year that has stuck with us and that feeling has stayed all year, there's very, very, very few.
Yeah,
We could name like maybe two, one for
yeah,
sure, and then like a second or third was a little bit more difficult. And
yeah.
so I'm a little bit concerned that, to make a long story even longer, I'm a little bit concerned that I might be overhyping this for myself,
Sure.
and I'm gonna go into it with too much expectation, and it might like, and it, I'm like, I'm gonna have to wrestle with that. But
Well,
I,
to be fair, we have, the horror season is upon us, and we have a ton of new stuff coming. We got uh, Hellraiser reboot in a couple weeks. We got Evil Dead Rise sometime in October. We got Jeepers Creepers reborn by the end of the year. Salem's Lot was scrapped, so we have no idea about Salem's Lot.
yeah.
So there's still a lot. Oh, Halloween Ends, of course. There's still a lot of horror to be had. Smile, I think looks good. I
Uh,
actually, I actually want to watch Pussy Cake. We keep not talking about it. Um,
oh, I just saw Deadstream is going to be coming out in October. Deadstream is something that I think was hitting South by Southwest or one of the other festivals this year, back in April and March, and people said was found footage awesomeness. Didn't look into a whole lot, just saw a quick blurb of that, but I saw a lot of people talking about it as they were watching it at the festival that weekend and couldn't stop raving about it as something to look out for. I think IFC acquired it, but at any rate, I believe it's coming out in first or second week of October. So yeah, there's a lot. There's that. What about that one? Wasn't that one called Sissy or something, or Piggy? Piggy is supposed
oh
to be coming
yeah,
out,
yeah. Piggy looks good.
and we're all, when we say that, we saw the word piggy on the title, and just like this woman covered in blood in a weird like ballerina type outfit, and like
Yeah,
just like a atmosphere behind her. It just looked fucking weird.
yeah.
I
That's
don't know
all.
what to
That's,
expect.
that's all I needed to see.
Yeah, I
I
this
I literally need to know nothing else about this movie, and I'm gonna watch it.
posters can do a lot with just getting you excited to see something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pussy Cake is Argentinian, um, and it is on Screambox right now. It's about a group of an all-girl like punk rock band goes on tour, and it's supposed to be a gore fest. So,
Exciting.
uh, yeah, I'm gonna watch
Okay.
that.
What is there? Yeah, I rewatched The Prestige with the wife the other day. She had never seen it.
Oh, Prestige.
Yeah, Rebecca Hall, but then like everyone
Yeah,
else that's in the movie, it's excellent. I love Christopher Nolan for the most part.
sure. I watched, like I told you before, I watched the last House on the Left for the first
Yeah,
time. The first time last night, and it was weird. Wes Craven 1970s. This movie making in the 70s was weird because it's all like music, and the
sure.
music is wonky.
It's
Like it's
very
just
bizarre. I like
it's instrumental, and it's almost like this is the soundtrack of people walking. This is what it sounds like. Like it's
that. I
that
know
it's
it's
the
weird, like,
you know exactly what I'm talking about,
face
right?
type
Yeah,
bullshit.
yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
because the same thing happened when I rewatched when we were watching Argento's Dark Glasses, Black Glasses, Ochi Norelli. Um, I've rewatched Deep Red, Profundo Russo, and it has all of those same elements where it's like
Yeah.
just an image of someone who's like,
Yeah, yeah, and it's like
just
this
like
is
this guy.
this
It's
is
just a guy
dialogue.
walking to
Yeah.
the building. He went in,
Yeah.
and then the door closed, and he's like, meow, boom, and then it goes to a
Yeah.
different thing, and it's like, whoa, weird. Yeah, it's trippy.
It's so weird. So to have that, and it's Wes Craven, who's one of the masters, as they say, and it must have been an early film for him too, because like, and it is iconic, right? But it's like a murder revenge kind of thing, and it ended very well, and I thought it was a little slow, and like the jokes were like really bad, like it almost felt like it was low budget for even the time of the 70s. Like, of course, I know nothing about the production, but that's just the vibe that I got.
Yeah. That
Um,
is one of the difficulties in going back to review classics that you never watched. You know, with the era that we grew up in and the films that we kind of cut our teeth on. Uh, you know, there's certain '70s classics that we can love and appreciate. You know, I think we both have a passion for Suspiria. You know, obviously for Halloween.
yeah,
If you go back and look at them, we can never experience those as a first timer with us now
yeah.
in our mindset now. And so it's
Sorry to interrupt. I just looked it up. It was his first movie,
yeah,
and he
but
wrote
that's
it.
what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying. Like us going back and watching a classic or something that's was a defining movie of the genre is a weird experience because you know they're revered in a unique way that it's not necessarily that it's hard to you can't put yourself in the shoes
of
of,
of
of a
our
viewer.
of our, or like our parents being
Right.
18 and watching it in the
There's
theater. Yeah, yeah.
and you
Bec-
can't take away everything that we have seen in life
yeah,
and
right.
what we're desensitized to. It's hard to put your mind in that sense. It's like you have to watch it almost objectively. Uh, there's certain things that are going to occur that probably impact you on a different level, non-objectively. But as a critic and viewer in that way, you kind of have to put on not rose-colored glasses, but sort of in a way to like that you're watching a piece of nostalgia almost, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we had a similar conversation when I like last year when I finally watched Rosemary's Baby for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like it was so strange to see all of these iconic scenes that had been parodied hundreds of times in other horror movies. I knew
Hmm.
the entire plot of the movie without ever having seen it because I knew all of these scenes from other movies. It
Yeah.
was so bizarre watching Rosemary's Baby for the first time at like 38, being like a huge horror fan
Yeah.
because I had seen almost the entire movie through other films.
Yeah. That's a good example of it. So Barbarian will be next week.
Barbarian next week and Pussy Cake the week after.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sounds delicious.
I just found out about it yesterday, and I've been trying to find it. And I had a Screambox subscription like 6 months ago, and I let it lapse because its selection was terrible. But I turned it back on today just so I can watch this movie.
Well, exciting. All right. Well, then we will see. I mean, from title alone, it sounds very skeptical. Sounds like it's a garbage title, but it could be one of those weird things where it just works.
Well, it's going to be subtitled, so that situation where the acting is good no matter what because you don't speak the language. I
Right.
love that. I love that.
Yeah. That's true.
It is so funny. It's a nice phenomenon. Like I'm watching this French movie. I don't know if they're good actors, but I'm reading the subtitles, so it's fine. All right. Well, I think that'll bring us to the end of episode 6, the review of She Will. Um, for tonight's episode of the podcast of the recently deceased, I'm Nate Roberts,
And I'm Rodney Godek. Take care.
and we'll see you next week.